What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And today, my amazing guest, all the way from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and we in America love Canadians. We love you guys. We love you guys. Is Katie Turner. Hello, Katie Turner.
Hello, thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun. If it's okay with you, I'm going to read your bio, let
Mhm.
everyone know who we're playing with, and we'll get cooking.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Okay, guys, we have Katie Turner is a registered psychologist, speaker, and the founder of Katie Turner Psychology Inc. and the author of Fuck Toxic Spirituality, Avoiding Red Flags and Navigating the Spiritual Path and Integrity. I love that title. I don't know why I can't read it without giggling. Katie believes in a holistic approach to healing. She has studied a wide range of Western psychology approaches and Eastern healing techniques. Katie is passionate about helping her clients to heal the past, find more peace in the present, and to create their best possible future. Katie's mission is to bring together the science of psychology and the practice of spirituality. She offers consultation services, sessions, workshops, and resources for organizations and modern day spiritual seekers. Katie lives in Calgary, Alberta, Canada with her daughter and rescue dog. When she's not holding space in her practice or working on her latest project, you can find her exploring the Rockies or hanging out on her yoga mat. You can take a free quiz to discover your dominant intuitive superpower at katieturnerpsychology.com. So welcome, kiddo. I appreciate you being here, and that's all good stuff. I love the blend of Western and Eastern everything. I find it fascinating. So, but before we jump in, I did mention I'm contractually obligated to ask you the what if you could question. So,
Yeah,
Katie Turner, have you ever had a what if you could moment to share? What if you could thought you'd like to share with us? Do you have anything you'd like to let us know?
for sure. I mean, definitely there's more than one. A big one in that even led to the work I'm doing now was what if when I went through my own spiritual awakening of what if I could combine the spirituality with the psychology? And that was quite a journey, and I've found a way to do it now. And now the next what if is how to bring it to more people.
Yeah. It's fascinating because I think whether it's medicines, whether it's supplements, whether it's working with the mind, you know, we keep forgetting, we think here on the Western society that we're just so brilliant, right? And then we look back and the Eastern's been around for 5,000 years, 10,000 years, whoever knows how long, right? And we keep, as the more you look into that, the more you go, that shit makes sense, right?
And when you have a spiritual awakening experience where, because I was Western and very logical and science based and not spiritual or religious, but when you have experiences where you can sense and know you're part of something bigger, it's like, maybe we forgot something in our culture.
Yeah, yeah. Which do you find, I mean, is there really a difference? I mean, if you're working with someone, do you lay both sides on them? Are there different techniques how you can mesh the two when you're working with people?
Yeah, so I mean, once I went through my own spiritual awakening, I've done a lot of advanced training in evidence-based methods within psychology or existing frameworks because any regulated health professional, you do have standards and guidelines, and there needs to be research around things and existing theories. So anytime anyone's working with anyone, it's really an art and science of matching the right approach to the person. So there's lots of different things I can draw from, but I'll do my best to tailor it more to someone's worldview. And definitely being in private, like I went into business myself because the type of work I wanted to do that I saw that was so powerful and transformational, I couldn't offer that in existing like government services or nonprofits because they're really regulated about what types of program, like what type of model you're allowed to use, session limit numbers, like where you're even allowed to focus. So private practice allows you to share more of what you can do. And then I find people are drawn to, they have an easier time sorting out who is a better fit for them and what they're looking for. So I
Yeah.
tend to get people who either already have that spirituality part, they're interested, they're drawn to it, they want to explore that more, or it's a big part of their world and they're kind of rightfully cautious about what mental health professional they may talk to about some of those spiritual or intuitive experiences because Western psychology doesn't typically have a good model of where to put intuitive or spiritual experiences. There's a few lines at the back of the DSM, and then a lot of it can get flagged as like, is this psychosis or something going on or break with reality? And sometimes it is. Some spiritual circles may miss that this could actually be a mental health crisis or emergency and reason for concern and overlapping. But other times, there's many very grounded people that are in the spiritual closet. Might be talking to their ancestors or angels.
Is there, I know like I've talked to a lot of doctors who have left traditional medicine and got into more Eastern medicine, supplements, plant-based medicines, things like that. And and there's a lot of regulations, there's a lot of challenges with expanding that because if you don't want to fight and here, the American Medical Association because they rule everything, and you don't want to fight the pharmaceutical companies because they rule everything, right? So, I can see how you have to be careful of how you broach that. But I mean, when you're doing the psychology, and in psychology and stuff, who maybe prescribe things, and then in Eastern medicine, they really aren't into pharmaceuticals, right? I mean, to work with the mind, are they as much?
I don't know enough. And for me, holistic, because I have a more holistic place, sometimes I'll have people come assuming I'm anti-medication, and I'm not. I think holistic is mind, body, spirit, and everybody has their own path. Like there is, I understand the concerns with big pharma and are we giving too much medication for things that need a deeper treatment and actually need more therapy, need other things, and it's just like this is a band-aid. There's other times where medication is life-changing and part of a holistic plan. So that's one of the areas I kind of talk about in my book is sometimes there's well-meaning spiritual communities that can really shame people around getting mental health medication where if someone has diabetes, you're not going to be like, you should be visualizing and you shouldn't take that insulin or you're not very spiritual. And for some people, that mental health medication is quality of life or life-changing and saving.
Yeah, yeah. So I think you said, and I may have missed it, but it said, are people seeking you out more for the holistic side of your treatment than maybe on the more traditional side?
I tend to get a bit of both. I tend to mainly attract clients who are looking for a deeper level of work and they've done some level of personal development work. They've often been to therapy and it was helpful, but then they feel like they reach a limit with it where they're like, I haven't quite got to the root and I need someone to help me get to the root. So I get the people who are more spiritual and I get the ones who are skeptical and usually wouldn't touch it or anything too far out there is kind of too woo for them, quote unquote. But if there is, because of the professional credentials and maybe word of mouth, they're open to giving something else a try.
Yeah. I think it's such a great ability to offer both. Because I think more and more people that I'm seeing, are leaning much heavier to the holistic side. They believe in both sides, right? Like you said, I mean, if you have an emergency, you're having a heart attack, you go to the doctor, you don't want them to go, let's meditate on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want them to get out the paddles and save your
Surgery.
life. But you were kind of a reluctant convert to this, right? I mean, you kind of fought it for a little while, kind of jumping into both sides, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I was cautious about it. And I think with the professional training side of things, I spent a lot of years exploring it myself personally before I ever brought it in to work with clients. And then I sought a lot more training because, again, I wasn't clear on the path forward with that, and I wanted to make sure I was doing it in a very like safe and ethical way, in a way that wouldn't compromise my license if I was going to stay in psychology. And I did I did wrestle for a while of like, do I need to leave the field entirely to be able to do this? But then I found once I got to a place where I knew this needed to be the foundation, the way of doing it within psychology started to reveal itself. And again, it's a more like niched area. It's not, you have to kind of look specifically for people who do specific types of training and types of work, but I think there's value in both. Again, like there's limits to psychology on its own and like conscious mind, Western approaches, but there's also there can be limits in just the spiritual side as well. Like so I think holistic really means everything and what's going to best help each person.
Is it still kind of taboo in the legitimate psychology world to start bringing in holistic training and tell people, yeah, I do a little holistic work with some of my clients? Do some of the old guard look at you like, oh my God, she's a witch. How dare you break the code? Or
Sure,
is
there
is
would
it
be.
still kind of taboo, or is it more and more
I'm sure
people in
there
your
would,
business doing
but
it?
again, like I did about a 2 year deep dive training in transpersonal psychology. I've done training in energy psychology, which is more like working with the meridian system, and there's a large body of research and science around that. So there's really more of I if anyone were to complain or be concerned with what I'm doing, I can back up the models and why and working with clients that they really have consent and lead what we try or don't try or where we go or don't go. So I'm never pushing things on people, but I tend to get people who want some deeper level anyway. Yeah.
Well, I mean, gosh, like I said, I mean, it's not like we don't have thousands of years of evidence and research of people doing this. Like you said, you've been to India, you've been to Nepal. I mean, China. I mean, throughout Asia. It's just like, I mean, he's doing this work forever and ever, long before the American Medical Association ever showed up or the American or Canadian. So it's not like you're breaking any groundbreaking area or any taboo area, right? You're just fusing the two together.
Yeah, the research is out there and I think my what if too was speaking more publicly about it because there's actually a lot of professionals who may have their own spiritual practice and belief and they may quietly underground kind of bring it in. But it's an interesting area where there's a US Gallup poll that found one of their questions was have you ever had a profound religious or spiritual experience that changed the course of your life? And it was rated 1 to 5. 41% of the population rated it 5 out of 5. So like 100% this changed the course of my life. That was the case for me.
Wow.
Um, and I'm forgetting the name of the book now, but they've done research with like scientists and academics around spiritual experiences. And many people it's changed. There's a significant portion that have had profound spiritual experiences. It's changed the course of their work and their research. They do not talk about it publicly. It's like they call it the divided life because there's still this stigma of like losing credibility, being too woo, not being taken seriously. So in the Western world, it's one of these things that is happening so frequently for people, but is not talked about and is still very stigmatized.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like I said, I've talked to traditional doctors, medical MDs, that have left the medical profession because they're like, we don't heal anybody, we don't cure anybody. We just write prescriptions and then we spend 30 seconds with a client and we just move on. We're not really doctors anymore, and they just get so frustrated with being handcuffed by the system that they want to be able to do medicine, traditional medicine, but also branch out a little bit and work with other holistic ways. I could see, what you're talking about, where people have experienced are just kind of on the edge of it.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
do Now, you say that you're an empath.
Mhm.
I know some Virgo empaths that are like really deep.
Mhm.
Um, how do you leave? Because being an empath is pretty tough. I mean, I've got some, like I said, some deep empath friends. I mean, it takes them 2 days to get over something time sensitive. They'll go home, close the blinds, and I won't see them for 2 days because they have to process stuff. Um, how do you deal with taking on people's stuff and keeping yourself safe, keeping
Yeah,
yourself protected?
for sure. It's a good question. And I might add in for anyone who's listening who doesn't know what that means. For me, empath is more, we all have a sensory gateway where we have a dominant intuitive type. So we get intuitive information, whether it's through sight, sound. Empath is feeling ability. We feel it in our body. It might be emotions or physical sensations. There is not a lot of research around empath as a term. So I would always caution people to take stuff with a grain of salt. When you Google it, you get all sorts of answers. Some of it, some like helpful, and some of it is, what the actual hell is this? But like some of it is way out there and not helpful and not actually true in my experience, or potentially really,
Don't Google anything.
yeah, just be careful of the source. But again, it's just not very well researched. But in my own awakening, I realized that was my dominant ability. And so I do believe it's real, and that we don't know what someone else's experience is like more than they do. But our internal sensations, emotions can shift dramatically depending who we're around. If someone we really care about is struggling, even if they're not physically with us, the energies of places can impact us, collective energy might. People have different degrees of how much they take on, and it's not a conscious choice. It just kind of happens, and we often don't even realize we are. I didn't even realize I was empathic till about mid 20s in an intuitive exercise, and it was mind blowing. And right away I was like, how long have I been doing this, and thought all of these emotions were actually mine. So many people can be empathic without realizing and just think they're sensitive. So for me, I've actually done a lot of work with it over the years, and it was my dominant ability to start with, and it sucked. I do emphasize with people of, if you could choose what intuitive ability you want, no one would pick this one in this world. And because often for us to feel okay, we need everyone else to feel okay, or so much time to recharge. And I'll use a metaphor of like a boat taking on water. If regular psychology gives us a lot of processing tools, so we're processing our emotions and scooping that, keeping that boat from sinking.
Yeah.
If you're an empath, you got a hole in that boat and it's filling up with the ocean. Like scooping is not going to help you. You need to plug the boat.
That's a perfect analogy, especially for a couple of my friends. I swear, there's such deep impasse that literally, I mean, like, it just takes them a couple days, and they will just they won't know sometimes why they're feeling something or they're emotional about something, and they just can't figure it out. And then they'll find out later, like a good friend of theirs is sick or passed away or
Mm,
something like that. And it really is, it's a real thing and it's a real deal. That's why I was
yeah,
curious, how you protect yourself as you're taking on
yeah.
people's stuff, because
With
you're
clients,
human,
I'd look
right?
at, yeah, I'd look at if it's just straight empathy and high sensitivity, we can work with it more. I'd also have people rule out or do some self-tests, and I'm not specialized in this area. I have like some minimal training in it, but it's more enough to screen for it to see, like, do you need to go work with someone else? For women, I'd also rule out autism as well, because autism can come with like shutdown, meltdown, burnout, and really high empathy. So that can be a piece to have on the radar to rule out. If it's more just an empathic, intuitive ability, I have found success in working with inner child work and belief system work. So that, because I've worked with it because I consciously didn't want it to be my primary ability anymore. It was too distressing, it was too much. There's things I need to do to take care of my nervous system, and I did a lot of protecting and clearing of my energy like daily while I was doing that deeper work. I still need to take care of that. Like I need to go for walks in nature, meditate, have ways to clear my energy and be conscious of how much I'm taking on and being able to let it go. But I've
Right.
also worked with my intuition and almost more inner child deeper healing to be like, you don't have to take this all on. Like these are adults' emotions. It's not yours to fix. You can show empathy in action without, and it's not a conscious process. Like we have to rewire it at a deeper level so that we can kind of build our own energetic bubble, like a cell membrane, where you can
Yeah.
recognize what's going on outside the cell. Things can land on the receptors. You can send love, receive love, show care, but you can be like, they're sad over there. I don't need to take this in and feel it sometimes more intensely than people are processing it themselves. And
Yeah.
then we're very much like, please go fix this and deal with it when people may not be ready to.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's great. That's great. Now, it's kind of like, like sunglasses, it blocks certain rays but lets other rays in. You kind of have to be
Mm.
able to you have to let some stuff in in order to help people, but there's some stuff you go, dude, I can't let that in. I'm only human, especially when you're an empath. But luckily, you have the Rockies there. You can just go hiking and breathe and get grounded and try to clear all that out of your psyche before you move to the
You
next
can, but I'd have to
person.
like live there all the time if I didn't do any of that other work, because especially in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's like, what happened to Katie? I don't know, man. We haven't seen her in
Yeah.
like a year. I don't know. She had
Okay.
to get out of here and detox from all the stuff. But so what was it? Would what made you, or what was the process of going and traveling like you did to India and Nepal? It says you spent like a year there. Did you go there seeking to work more on your a different side of what you wanted? Or did you go there and that's kind of when the floodgates open of, oh wow, there's this other side to this.
Yeah, the floodgates started opening and I didn't consciously realize what I was signing up for. So I really love traveling. I traveled a fair bit before that, so experiencing other cultures, traveling, like that was a value for me. So I've done similar things before. It was really more kind of burning out, finishing grad school, early career, and I was struggling with some of the limitations of what I saw in just the early training in the mental health system that had a lot of focus on like conscious mind approaches, kind of like CBT as the Bible, and really just conscious mind planning, like change your thoughts, make a plan, this should fix it. And just saying that's not seeming to actually like move everyone through this. And at a certain point, it can be a little bit harmful. So I was kind of struggling with that and then really burnt out. And so I ended up just getting a one-way ticket, and I was volunteering at a meditation center, just wanted a break, wanted to give myself more time for meditation, yoga, just to be. And in hindsight, if you want a spiritual awakening, like make more space for those kind of practices because that can open it up or accelerate it. Getting out of our conscious mind, getting
Yeah.
into spiritual practices that resonate. So now I know I was doing things that would have made that more likely to happen,
Mhm.
but didn't realize at the time.
So so when you were there, that kind of just opened it up to you more. I mean, you probably already had it there, but that kind of brought it more to the surface. And did you work with practitioners there when you were in India and Nepal?
Yeah, I worked with a number of different practitioners, did different trainings, explored energy work, breath work, different meditation practices. And I think it was just more, a lot of it helped me be from just like a cut off head and conscious thinking to dropping more into the body, into sensations, into subtle shifts,
Mhm.
into more of the somatic.
Yeah. So how'd you come up with the title for your book?
Yeah, there's a couple different versions when I ran it by a few people and they're like, this is the one. And I think I really wrote the book because I just found myself saying so many times over the last, it's been over a decade that I've been doing this full time and really specializing in this area. And there's just so many times where I'm working with clients on their journey where we're processing stuff in session, or they have questions, or they're bringing up shame, concerns, or like real red flags that they've had with spiritual communities or coaches, teachers, like people they trusted who did a ton of damage, that I just found myself saying so many times, it's not your fault, because how would you know? When you Google spiritual awakening symptoms or like spirituality, you get, I call it the Wild West of like Google videos and articles and coaches, because so few, and I'm not saying regulated professionals are immune from problems. There can be problematic people. Most, we have ethical liability insurance for a reason. People cross that. Like there's not good people in every space. But when you get into unregulated, I find people can be more prone because you're going to the spiritual space thinking everybody's here for good. And like, if they have these abilities, maybe they're more evolved, and not necessarily. Like, and sometimes people can go in really vulnerable and learn things the hard way. And I learned some things the hard way, but I'm fortunate that I don't have a significant trauma history where like I could recognize what was happening and be like, "Whoa, wait a minute, no, I'm out." But I've seen other people where that's been really, like I've seen the aftermath for clients I'm supporting later, to say like financial exploitation or abuse, sexual boundary violation or assault, like
Yeah.
just really murky boundaries to straight up, these are almost like dangerous and manipulative people. And so I think it really is a spectrum where most of it's well meaning and well intentioned, but we have to look at some of the societal influences we have around this tendency to go towards toxic positivity and using spirituality as a bypassing of like, well, everything happens for a reason. So like why are you sad about this? Or don't think bad thoughts. You're gonna manifest this. Or like, oh, like you must have manifested that because something bad's happening versus how do we be more human and grounded and like
Mhm.
really support each other in the human experience, understand that we have a nervous system, that even if we are a spiritual being, we are trapped in a human body and nervous system in this lifetime, and we have to work with that as well. And
Yeah.
so when our nervous system is regulated, when our trauma is stabilized or at a certain point of healing, it's like then there's certain things that can be helpful on a spiritual level. Other times that can be really harmful or destabilizing. Like I just wanted to bring a more nuanced discussion to it and more depth to it and give people some reflection questions and a bit of a guide map, like a roadmap of things to consider that they might not have even thought to consider.
Mhm. So when I guess when you go into like traditional therapy, psychologists, psychiatrists, and stuff like that, and you're on the couch and you're going back and you're bringing up past pains and past this and past that, there is a lot of guilt and blame and things associated with that, right? So, and that's not always helpful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So taking it the other way, like you're doing, seems to be a little more gentle approach to helping people find that boo-boo and kind of working their way through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the like effort part of it for me was really like I want to guide people, but I was real tired of certain personalities really doing a lot of damage. Like I'm like I want to equip people to not be manipulated by you anymore or people like you anymore.
So
No
how
matter
long?
what.
Exactly, yeah, dude. So how long ago did you write this book?
It was it was published last year, last summer, August, I think. Yeah.
So it's newer.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
newer.
cool, 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 cool. Yeah, I try to dig into, the books and stuff like that when before I interview someone. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. But I just loved the title and I loved avoiding the red flags and navigating the spiritual path because like you said, and say, well, God, you just must be manifesting that, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I didn't do it. Wait a minute,
Yeah.
I can't control that narcissist asshole. This isn't something I can always do. I did not manifest this type of treatment. And then other times it's like, yeah, we kind of continue to have the same sort of experiences over and
Talk
over.
about that. Like I talk about some, I basically put together these are the most common themes I see over and over and over again that I just wish I could tell everybody about. Or the common questions people have, or the nuances, because there's that, well, spiritual point of what you see as a mirror for you to look back. And so I'd have people come in to be like describing a horribly abusive person and be like, where am I being like this? And I'm like, no, no, no. It's like what is contributing to this of like what's your learning in this, and your learning may be very different from their learning. Like your learning may be how to level up in your own spiritual warrior ability where you're still leading with love and kindness, but you have a big fence and you are prepared, you're arming yourself with knowledge, you are sometimes there's with narcissistic relationships in general, there's a lot of misconception around like empath narcissist. It's there's actual research and training around survivors of pathological love relationships, and there's many pathways to different things too. So, but about 60% of survivors actually have high personality traits where it's like these aren't bad things. Empathy is one of them, but like trustworthiness, high moral standards, not being very impulsive. Basically, a lot of traits where you're like, if I had a friend, a spouse, a significant other, a business partner, I would want them to be high on these traits in personality. These are a good thing
Mhm.
unless you're targeted by a manipulator, then they are a risk factor for you because you will try too hard for too long and and then you get into a trauma bond and trouble.
Yeah. It's a weird phenomenon. I mean, I may be off, but it seems to me that empaths find narcissists and narcissists find empaths, and for some reason those two are drawn to each other, and it's usually a crash and burn mission from hell. They get when those two come together, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you kind of bring tough love. I mean, it doesn't sound like you kind of are like, it's okay, kitten. We'll get through this. It sounds like you kind of bring tough love to people in how you approach
Well, I
people.
want to empower people, and I find some of the spiritual some messages in certain spiritual communities or teachings that people come, and these are basically a mismatch of many different examples, not any one client. But it could be pieces of like, oh, well, like if my kid's soul signed up for this, like they chose this other parent, and it's like, well, you as this parent in this lifetime, like what lawyer can you talk to? What evidence can you collect? Like this doesn't mean that they signed up for it. So, and they'll get that from other people of like almost just dismissing it or gaslighting it. And it's like, no, as you should be angry about this. Like this is harmful for your kid. And what are your options? Where's the line for you? Um, yeah, it's not always just about, okay, well, like we'll just let this play out then. Like I think part of our and that's where it can be harmful is sometimes there's a lot of like capitalist spirituality too of like most of the manifesting is really ego based. You go to those vision board workshops and it's always the $1 million check and they're like it's always money, money, money. Like
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
very fortunate in the Western world is like we have more financial success than a lot of so like we're the top 1% of the world population of like stable food, housing, all these other things. Like abundance isn't hoarding billions of dollars. It's knowing you have sufficiency. And beyond that, it's like brains in this achievement oriented state, like they're not happy or they're actually more prone to depression, anxiety. You're always chasing the next hit. And so sometimes if it's really a spiritual level, like it's not always about more money. It's about how do you expand certain capacity? How do you live in a sense of purpose, flow, peace, harmony, have good relationships? Yeah. And
Yeah.
money's important to a certain level, but it's not everything.
I think it seems like a little bit, I mean, the more and more the people I talk to, that's starting to change. I mean, people are like less starting to get much less attached to the monetary stuff,
Mhm.
the money, chasing this, the big house, the fancy car and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just kind of want to get back to I want experiences, I want health, I want
Yeah.
peace. I just want the end of craziness, and
Yeah.
I'm starting to see that more and more, which is a really exciting thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's important to know what money can buy and what it can't. And when it can give us time freedom to do more of the things that are important for us.
Yeah,
Then it's a big help. Definitely having stability to meet our basic needs, it's huge. But
yeah,
beyond that, it's not a consistent relationship.
yeah, yeah. Who do you see? What's the type of, is there a typical kind of person that seeks you out, that kind of comes to you? I mean, is it like some people have specialties in some things? Some people specialize in one area, some people specialize in an area. Is there a certain kind of person that you like to work with your therapy?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few like deeper specializations and then a few like broader ones where it's like I'm not an expert in this, but it comes up enough that I need some understanding. Um, I'd say the main thing is it's people who are like quite motivated to be self-aware. They're quite introspective. They're often very aware of their patterns. They may actually be over-analyzing or too
Yeah,
consciously aware, but they're looking for support because they just have this sense of knowing that there's something deeper there and they want to go deeper. Yeah.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
that stream, and then I also seem to have a stream of people who have this kind of spiritual connection or calling, and they seem to almost be like spiritually guided to me, or things line up in a synchronistic way. And they're feeling called to deepen their own intuition and that connection with that part of themselves. And
yeah,
Canada's different than the States from what I understand in the therapist groups I'm a part of. Our insurance is often like, here's your insurance, go use it how you want to, and just send in the receipts. From what I understand of US system, it's very medical based of like you need a diagnosis and an approved treatment plan and this. So like here people could use it for whatever they want and they don't need to have a diagnostic label.
yeah. I think that. I don't know. Again, I just come back to I think more people are searching for that spiritual. outlet more than I want to go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a psychotherapist and sit on the couch every Thursday and say the same thing for the next 10 years. I mean, I just don't, I think more and more people want to move away from that type of just constantly looking at my belly button and how bad I've been and, this, that, or the other thing. I think people want to more look outward, right? And kind of start thinking about getting better instead of what's been wrong.
Yeah, and having real tools that help them move through that or help like working with someone, it should be tools you take away in an investment in yourself where it's kind of reason a season or lifetime, but with the intuitive bridge part, I'll help people connect with that, but it gives they get more connected in the course of working together, so they don't need me as much, or they don't need to like they might have been going to psychics or readers or other things, and it's like you might still do that to check in with blind spots or things, but you have that connection within yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I love that approach. I just think it's better. And I love what you said about, you're kind of trying to get people, yes, heal the past, but find more peace in the present and create their best possible future.
Mhm.
And to, with each one of those steps, I guess that's the basis of psychology and psychiatry is to kind of fix your past, work on your future. But it seems like a gentler way to do it, mixing the two, mixing the holistic with it. I think it's kind of a gentler way to do that approach, it seems.
Yeah, and I think again, there's no one right person or approach for anyone. Like, I'm not going to be for everyone. It's not going to resonate with everyone, but for the people it does, it's
Mhm.
good to have that option. And then there's other approaches or more cognitive levels that'll work for other people. And so I think that's also like that's one of the red flags I talk about too. If somebody's really like, this is the only way and this is the only course, and if you don't give me $20,000, you're not serious about this. Like,
That
oh,
ain't gonna
watch out.
happen.
Yeah.
No, I'm just gonna stay crazy and sick because yeah, that ain't gonna happen. So you started your own practice, your own business, your own company to kind of free you up. How long have you been doing that?
Yeah, so that's been full time for probably just over a decade now. And then I was doing it part time for about, while working in kind of more the traditional system for probably about 5 or 6 years before that.
Yeah,
Been a
that's
bit.
awesome. So
Mhm.
what's next then? Where are you going to take this next? What do you see expanding into? What do you see therapy moving forward? I mean, I think more and more people are 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 more comfortable with the mental health talk. I think more people are more engaged with reaching out and getting help. More people understand, hey, I might not be totally crazy, right? I'm not a psycho killer, but getting a tune up here or there, or maybe just working to try to make myself a little bit better.
Mhm.
I think more and more people are open to talking to you and going seeing what you do, right?
Yeah, I think on a collective level, like there's just so much more understanding and so much more education in the general population that I do. My prediction for the field in general is that people who can take people deeper are probably going to be more and more in demand, especially with
Mhm.
the rise of AI and just like basic, like here's a basic worksheet or smart goals or this thing. It's like there's going to be stuff that artificial intelligence can't replace on the human attunement, like that level of depth guidance. So I think I see that more and more in general. For myself, I'm in the middle of an unknown kind of intuitive leap right now, which at this stage of my life, being the main parent, like it's a slower build. But this call to do more, like, how do I make this accessible for more people? It's very intuitive in that intuitive gives us a sense of like, I need to go in this direction, but I don't really know where it's going or like what it's going to end up being. So I'm very much in that now. Like the book was part of that. I'm I'm hoping to do I'm doing more like free resources and just like blog posts and writing, speaking on podcasts. And my hope is to move into more like groups or workshops where it's not therapy, so I can actually work with people outside of the province and who I couldn't work with as a therapist. Um, because I also think the traditional therapy model is not sustainable or accessible for everybody. It's always like 1 hour for clients, but so it limits what you can do in terms of what you're giving away or what you can reduce as a sliding scale and actually still support yourself
Yeah.
financially, but I do want to have things that are accessible for people at every budget level. Because
Mhm.
again, I think there's an element of sometimes the money behind it is the energetic investment, and there's other times where like people are barely surviving and them showing up is the investment, and like they can still get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for you then, I mean, are you thinking maybe looking for ways to broaden your practice, broaden your exposure, broaden, like you said, instead of just sitting with one person at a time for an hour and then, every Thursday, whatever, with Susie or whatever. Are you thinking maybe more speaking engagements, more interaction on a bigger scale with what you want to do?
Yeah, it's kind of more of and I've been moving that direction anyway. A lot of I haven't been able to take on new sliding scale clients for probably 7 years, but I will give time to organizations where they're like, we need a speaker on this topic or this, and then thousands of people can show up. So I'm happy to donate my time for that. And so I think it is moving more into that model to be like, how do I put together like a workshop, a group, something around this where it's not therapy, but it gives people a lot that they can work with at an more accessible price point. And more accessible because I'm very bound for therapy. Like I can only do therapy in the with people in the province I'm in.
Hmm. So it sounds like maybe moving into maybe almost a, hate the term motivational speaking, but but moving into more of a broadening of what you're doing and encompassing more of the holistic part of it.
Mm-hmm. That's the sense. But with the intuitive, there's always that potential for like what might come up or what opportunities may come from that. So I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like yet, but the intuitive call I get is more like make it more available beyond just what you're doing.
But you could feel something shifting.
Oh yeah, it's been shifting for years, but I can feel it getting more and more like okay, it's time.
That's awesome. And the book was a big part of that. What's it
Yeah.
like when I mean, how did you write the book? I've always wanted to write a book, but I just don't have anything to say. I'm just not that I'm
Yeah.
just not that intelligent. I don't know what I would write, right? There'd be one page. That'd be it. Um,
Uh,
what's it like when you sit down and put your thoughts down to share your vision stuff? What's it like when you go to write that book?
yeah, I think, I mean, a lot of times when I work with people one on one, knowing what works well for you is important. So I don't believe there's like one process that works for everyone. For me, I'm like a recovering perfectionist, like overachiever. So I signed up for a course that had deadlines and like homework because that'll activate that part of me where it's like if I can just do it whenever, it's not going to get done because I have so many other things like pushing for time. But if there's like a course, as an adult, I'll pay people to grade me basically, and then I get it done.
Yeah, and I'm so the opposite. I'm like, you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah,
Well, you're paying me to tell you what to do. I'm like, I don't care. You can't tell me what to
yeah.
do. Just like, yeah, I don't know. My brain just doesn't work that way. I'm just more of a free flow, like, all right, as it comes, I can do it. And under timelines, I'm like, oh, I got performance anxiety. I'm just like, no,
Yeah,
I
there wasn't
can't.
any real hard timelines. Like I had time with it, but there was kind of timelines of like if you want feedback from this team and like if you want to access these resources, you have to get it done by this time or you don't
Yeah.
have feedback. So
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you
yeah.
want to get it done, right? Otherwise, I've
Mhm.
talked to people who've spent like 15 years writing a book. I'm like, how do you spend
Yeah.
15 years writing a book? I couldn't do anything for 15 years, right? I mean, but that just seems like I guess your way made a lot more
And I
sense.
think on the entrepreneur side, I had to get comfortable with like 80% good enough done and out there is better than perfect because otherwise you take way too long to make it perfect. So I've always done things where, and there's certain things you need to put more time into. Like we logically use, like if I'm presenting to a group of executives, there's a ton of time going into that. There like can't be any typos in it. But if you're doing
I've
like a
heard
first
I've heard
webinar, like
editors I've
sometimes I
heard
just
editors can really screw up your vision too. Like editors like start taking you in a different direction. Like, no, 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 that's not what I want. Did you have a good editor?
well, I ended up going self-publishing route just
Oh,
to
cool.
because I was more like I started it off as like it's just gonna be a small little like mini booklet and it ended up growing and then it was more of like I just want to get this out there and have it as a low price point offer and then I can move on to do other things.
So real quick, what is the book about? I mean, I obviously have the title and I love the
Mhm.
title and I see what it says about it. But so what's the premise of the book? I mean, if I wanted to go pick up the book, what am I going to get out of this book?
Yeah, you're basically going to get a combination of like a psychologist take and a bit of more of like the research base behind things when it comes to spirituality and spiritual awakening. So it really flows in sections of, is this actually safe? Like spiritual awakening is real. Here's intuition. Here's when it's a good idea. And here's some things to consider of like, this actually may not be a good idea to keep opening this up. This could be dangerous or destabilizing. Like, do not pass go if we're here. If we're good, let's move on. So get some other support, get grounded, like get a psychiatric assessment potentially. And again, for someone who loves someone, because if they're suddenly going through this and they're talking about all these experiences, you're like, are you having a like psychotic break? Are you safe? So here's some questions for that. Um, Not meant to replace professional diagnosis, but just to guide you in a direction.
Yeah.
Then I also talk about within that spectrum of kind of like well meaning, but this can have unintentional harm. Let's have some discussion around it and some things to consider, whether it's the toxic positivity, a bit about understanding how our subconscious mind and our nervous system like stores negative emotional memory or trauma differently. And we do need to work, like, depending on what someone's history is, we may need to work with that. It also may be unsafe to speed up spiritual awakening without that safety container of enough healing done there. So I talk about that, and then I talk about, yeah, a lot of the things that kind of come up of like well-meaning, but I almost talk about like the capitalist, like watered down. It's kind of like white people took this from ancient traditions, took a soundbite of it and made a social media post, and now people are in my office being like, "Oh no, am I manifesting something bad, or where am I reflecting?" And it's like this is not detailed enough. Like this is not nuanced enough. And so this may be helpful in some cases, but we need to have a much deeper discussion.
I love it. I love it. And it just sounds like it's a fun book to go through, but you're also going to pick up some great tips on just like you said, those red flags. I mean, like most people see red flags and they just think it's a circus or a carnival, they just completely ignore them and just like go right on by and end up going, man, I thought I saw that, but I didn't see that. So that's awesome. So
Yeah, and when we get into the like dangerous or manipulative personality types, like we get into extreme emotional immaturity, lack of awareness, or even personality disorder features, and it's just an area that it's not a large percent of the population. And so if people haven't really encountered it or have that training, like we don't know what to look for. So I think it's good knowledge anyway. Like it's something we should get training with from a young age. And I don't mean to stigmatize those groups because if you're actually getting help and working to manage it, like that's a different story. You can have it and manage it and not be doing harm, but a lot of it is unmanaged and can create actual severe trauma in people who get too close to them.
yeah, and let's face it. I mean, people are getting meaner and more manipulative, and social media just lets people be bizarre. And I think it really is affecting a lot of people.
Mhm.
It's just wearing them down, making them uncomfortable, making them feel unsafe, making them feel victimized. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are taking advantage of that. It's so you really do have to protect yourself. You have to get these tools like from your book, to protect yourself, or you could really get some damage done.
Yeah, and again, kind of that knowing what to look out for too, because like if a regulated professional is crossing boundaries and things, it's like they know better, they've been trained better, like they've had exams, there like there's disciplinary action, there's it's I'm not saying like regulated professions are immune to it, but when we get into I think one of the concerning trends I'm seeing with destigmatization of mental health and more discussion in this area is I see more and more people kind of pivoting into it, where suddenly now they're a coach or they're this trauma facilitator. I mean, I saw someone who was doing angel card readings suddenly post about giving a keynote speech on treating depression and was just shocked and went in to look at their bio, and I don't see anything to indicate that they've done any training with this to and like there's some areas of mental health where having a little bit of knowledge is dangerous because you don't know what you don't know, and there's a high risk of self-injury, of death, and it's like if you're not appropriately trained and supervised to assess for that risk or make sure anyone you're work like know where your lane is and you're staying in there, um mental health informed or trauma informed. I think people need to be more and more discerning of like who are they working with, what to look for. I'm not saying I've worked with coaches. There's coaches I love. I think coaching can be very helpful. I just worry that there's a lot out there, and does the general population have enough information or knowledge to know how to screen someone? Because you need to be almost more diligent with that.
Yeah, well, that's great advice. It is so true. I mean, I talk to people all the time, and they just, they were taken down a rabbit hole by someone who had a great song and dance, and it
Mhm.
literally ended up in a really bad way because they
Yeah.
just believed what this person was telling them, that this was going to give them the help based on what this person was able. Because some people are just really good about reading people and
And
knowing
some
which
people
way they
have
could pull them.
powerful like psychic abilities and powerful like energy abilities, so they can be walking in these worlds. And I made that mistake early on of just assuming like, okay, if you have these kind of advanced abilities and psychic skills and gifts, you might that might be some indication of your evolution as a person, or like that you're a good person and coming from a good place. But they may not be doing their shadow work or being able, it's not about any, nobody's perfect or fully healed or this, but it's like, can they be aware of their blind spots? Are they having their own container? Again, red flag of like, if anyone thinks they're like godlike or beyond having to do any work or not human anymore, I would not be comfortable sending anyone to work with them.
Wonderful advice, my friend. That is very good advice. So Katie, you've been great. I mean, it's just time just flies by on these things. But I lied earlier, and as a psychologist, you probably know that I was a liar. I said I just had one question, but I actually have two questions. So I gave you the first question, the what if you could question, but I never give the second question. And the
Mhm.
second question is, if there was something that meant something to Katie Turner, a thought, a saying, a belief, a feeling, just something that meant something to you in your
Mhm.
heart and your soul that you'd like to leave us with before we sign off. What's a last kind of thought, if you had one, you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, something that I've been kind of wrestling with more and more, or wondering how to do more and more of, is I do think, we come from many generations before us, and a lot of the things around emotional self-awareness, internal reflection, like how do we be kind to ourselves but notices what's coming up, work through it. Really the emotional maturity, accountability, self-awareness. I kind of see more and more of like where that's a problem on a larger scale. But I also think it's in our history, like our social history, it hasn't been taught or passed down. Like it's relatively new. And there's a lot of cycle breakers doing this work. But I think our we really need it as for our happiness and peace and harmony as a species.
Wow, that is so true. I mean, especially right now, right? There's just a lot of bizarre stuff going on out there, and I just think that is 100% true.
Yeah,
And
and there's so much like polarization, division, dehumanizing, like us versus them. And I don't think like that polarization is the answer.
I agree. I don't think it's the answer either. Well, Katie, we're gonna just have people come to you and help them figure all this stuff out. That's for damn sure. So we already kind of chatted about what's next. So where can people find Katie Turner? Where can we go to find your book, your counseling, your YouTube, whatever else you have going? Where can we find all this
My
stuff?
website has it all in one spot and like the links to everything. So that would be katieturnerpsychology.com.
KatieTurnerPsychology.com. And you've got that's the link to your YouTube. You've got all your other stuff on there that you do, your treatments and stuff like that. It's a great website. And I think people need to find that. So we're going to go to KatieTurnerPsychology.com to get everything Katie Turner.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Katie, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I know this time just flies when we do these things, but I'm grateful that you came along to share all your code stuff that you're doing.
Thanks
And
for having me
tell us
too.
the name of your book one more time.
So it could be either fuck toxic spirituality or F toxic spirituality. There's an asterisk of where the U is. And it's avoiding red flags and navigating the spiritual path with integrity.
I love this book. Now I've got to go get this book. Everybody's got to go get this book because it just sounds awesome. So, all right, my friend Katie, thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys. You just had a little bit of time with Katie Turner. Look her up at katieturnerpsychology.com, and she could just walk you through some of these boo-boos of life and fix you up. So, thank you, Katie. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.